in our different groups um, to remind people that the Shiur is starting, and Luis will be helping you here. I just have something urgent here that came up, so I think you can just begin, and she will help you out.
Okay. So maybe it characterizes that, as Roland said before, that this is more a forgotten holiday because when we met before uh, Pesach, I think we had 48 participants, and many of them couples on the Zoom, and now in the meantime we're on 15, but maybe more will join. In any case, those who are very welcome, and I I would like to start with speaking about the relationship between the uh, uh, the I see more coming in every time you have to press the button there. Okay, the the relationship between the book of Ruth, which is a very centerpiece in the in what we do during Shavuot, what we read in on Shavuot, and of course the main reading for Shavuot, which is Zman Matan Toratenu, which is the time when we receive the Torah at Har Sinai, at the Mount of Sinai, and wait a minute. You're letting all these people in. Somebody let them in.
Yeah, there is Luis. You don't need to worry about. There is Luis who will help with that.
Okay, but it comes up on my thing. Uh, um, Zman Matan Toratenu, that this is where we stood at Har Sinai and got the revelation and said in our seven Ishma, we will act and we will listen, and the whole divine overture which proffers the covenant and the whole centrality of accepting the Torah, and the contrast maybe between the two to see that. In order just to give you just a little background, because not necessarily everybody remembers what happens in the book of Ruth, I'll just give it a couple of sentences, just the beginning of the book, a couple of sentences. The beginning of the book of Ruth talks about the famine in Judea, especially there in the town of Bethlehem, and you have there a very prominent family of Elimelech, and he then travels with his wife Naomi, because there is nothing to eat there, and he then travels and they go to a place of Moab, which is an interesting place. We know the place of Moab from the Torah, that Moab was a place where they did not give food to the Israelites when they came through. When they came through in the desert, and therefore Jews are not supposed to marry people who come from Moab. But in any case, they went Dafka in the time when they were looking for food, they went to Moab. Right? They went and they lived there, and this was not a happy story. Elimelech died, and his two sons, they married women from Moab, Ruth and Orpah, and these two sons, they, after having lived there for 10 years, they also died. And the people who were left was this widow called Naomi and her two daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah. These two daughter-in-laws. And then Naomi had heard that there was again bread in Judea, and then she decided to go out to look for to go back home. And they started their journey, and then then there comes this dramatic talk between her and her two daughter-in-laws, which I want to dwell into. But this is really dramatic, because the one daughter-in-law, she goes back home, she leaves Ruth Orpah, she leaves Naomi. Naomi asks them, pleads with them that they should go home. She said she can't provide for them, she can't do anything for them. Even if she marries again, until the children will grow up, they won't be able to marry these daughter-in-laws, and therefore there's no point of them wait. There's nothing for them to expect, nothing, and therefore finally she convinces Orpah to go back home. But in this talk, there is where Ruth clinches to her. There are some expressions which are very, very dramatic. And these expressions I want to go into and to see how the Midrash, because we are dealing a lot with Midrash now, how the Midrash in the Midrash Rabbah for Ruth, how the Midrash deals with this text. So if we can put up the text, then we will dwell into the text, and I welcome all those who have now joined. Seems a little more have come up, at least 50% more, so you're very welcome. Okay, so the text talks about the following. The text in the Megillah says, Yas Hashem imachem chesed kasher asitem im hametim ve'imadi. May the Lord perform kindness with you. She's speaking again to the two daughter-in-laws, just as you have done with the dead and with me. This is how she wants to depart from her daughter-in-laws. So now we see how the Midrash is dealing with this. The Midrash says the following. Rabbi Chanina bar Ada said, it is written Ya'aseh, okay? Ya'aseh, that Ya'aseh, okay? That this is the way it is written. Kasher asitem ima metim, as you performed with the dead. So that you in the future, the Lord should in the future, it's a future tense. In the future tense, God should perform with you chesed, kindness, as you in the past performed with, as you asitem with this, with the dead and with me. What did you do? As you performed with the dead, that you tended to their shrouds. What is tachrichehem? What does that mean? This is the general tradition, what the Chevra Kadisha does, that you, when we have somebody who dies, there is a whole tradition of that you have to prepare special cloth for a dead person, and all of this, and again, these were very poor people, and they took care that there would be the special tachrichim, the special cloth shrouds for the dead, and all that they did, knowing that there would be nobody, like when the Chevra Kadisha does something, nobody to thank them for it. It was done all out of love and kindness, and because the dead couldn't thank them for it. So this was a special act of loving kindness from these non-Jewish women. They were the ones who could do this. And also with me, you also performed act of loving kindness. Why? Because you relinquished your marriage contracts. What does that mean? That when you get married in a Jewish wedding, you write a ketubah, and they relinquish. And in the ketubah it says that there is a certain sum of money which is guaranteed if there is, God forbid, a divorce, or when the husband dies, which ensures the financial future for the divorced or for the widow. And apparently Naomi was a guarantee for this, for the ketubah, for the money guaranteed in the ketubah, and therefore when the husbands had died, the Ruth, she relinquished this. She said, I give you, I don't want the money which she had due, which she was supposed to live off the rest of her life. And she said, I don't want the money. I don't want, because I know the financial situation here. I don't want anything. And this was a very, very fantastic, unbelievable act of loving kindness from Ruth, and also from Orpah. Actually, both of them relinquished your money. So she says, so she blesses them that God will do kindness to them, just as they have done, especially mentioning these two acts of loving kindness. And Rabbi Zeira, he adds to this a very famous statement, which is very, very often quoted about Megillat Ruth. He says, the whole of this Megillah, the whole of the book of Ruth, does not contain laws of purity or impurity, not prohibitions or allowances. Why was it written? It is to teach you the extent of good reward for those who perform kindness. Now, this is a statement which only has a relative truth in it, because there are lots and lots of laws which we learn from the book of Ruth, in which are halakha, lots and lots of halachot. I can mention some. We learn laws of conversion from the book of Ruth, all kinds of details of the laws of conversion from the book of Ruth. We learn from the book of Ruth that you're allowed to marry a Moaviyah, a woman who comes from Moab, but not a man who comes from Moab. This is learned from the book of Ruth. There are all kinds of. We learn the laws of some laws of chalitza, of how you. Okay, I don't want to go into that. You learn that there has to be 10 people for saying sheva brachot, that for when you get married. That we learn from the book of Ruth, the blessings after you get married. So there are lots of laws and many other laws, more laws than any other Megillah you learn from the book of Ruth. So this statement from Rabbi Zera is a weird statement. So what does he mean? What does he mean by this statement? And I think that what he means to say in this quite extreme statement is, in order to shake up those who study this book and to say the centrality of this book is not the halakha. It's not a book of halakha. You want to read a book of halakha, they're books of halakha. This is not the book of halakha. You learn different halakhot, okay. You learn laws also here. But this is a book of where the centrality is loving kindness. This is the idea of the book of Ruth, and therefore I want to go back to what I started with, saying how is this a counterpiece to what happened at Sinai? This is the Sinai, but a very different way from the Sinai which we read in the Torah with the Ten Commandments. And because it's about chesed, it's about loving kindness. And I want to say what the message is of this counterpoint to the revelation at Sinai. And say the following: the whole world, we say, is talking about the glory of God. The heavens tell of God's glory, and the firmament relates the work of his hands. Also, the story of a maiden, of a simple Moabite maiden who becomes the mother of the kingdom of Israel. It's about tragedies and dramas of simple folk. But it is something more than that. This Moabite maiden, unschooled in Jewish law, unschooled in the Torah, she has a natural approach, which we see in the beginning and which we see also later in the book of Ruth, a natural approach, a natural progression to Torah, to God, to the Jewish people. It's a natural connection which all comes from loving kindness, and therefore there is this a natural connection to a nature. It's a kind of man-God relationship, which is a very different relationship than what was at Sinai. What was at Sinai came from miracles of the Exodus. I'm the Lord of God who brought you out of Egypt. You saw the plagues. You saw the Exodus. You saw what happened at the sea when what happened to Pharaoh. You saw personally all of that. You saw that physical revelation, and you came to the spiritual revelation at Sinai, and you got the commandments, and you were bound by the commandments. Here, this is a different kind of conversion. This is a conversion which comes totally from a non-Jew who knows nothing about Judaism, but she comes from a universal point of view of loving kindness. And this universal loving kindness brings her to the same place as the whole Jewish people coming to revelation at Sinai. At the same time, it doesn't mean that when she converts, she doesn't have to also learn something about a Jewish law. And therefore, it continues with, and we can scroll down a little, if you'll be kind enough to scroll down. So, when Ruth appeals that she wants to convert, that she wants to be part of the Jewish people, so Ruth says, "Do not entreat me to leave you, to return from following you." She begs, she asks so intensely, Naomi, don't leave me alone. I want you to convert me to Judaism. She says, "Do not sin to me. Do not impose your reservations upon me. I want you to take care of my conversion to Judaism. To leave you, to return from following you. In any case, my intention is to convert. It is preferably that you, and not through any other, because you know my sincerity, that through you I shall go through then the conversion." And then when Naomi hears that, then she began arranging the laws of converts. So she starts to study with her. Then she starts to talk with her about Jewish laws. And she says, "My daughter, it's not the way of an Israelite woman to go to theaters and circuses." Circuses here is not what today is circuses, and theaters is also not the same. It means that you don't do what other Gentiles do. It means you circuses was some racing with horses. It just has the word kir kakaot, that it's something round. It was what you don't do what the Gentiles do. You go to study houses and study Torah. You go to Bet Knesset. This is what the Jews do, and you also have limits to where you can walk. For example, on Shabbat, she teaches her Shabbat rules that you can only walk a certain distance. This is what she teaches her. so there are rules of Shabbat. And she says, where you go, I will go. I won't go to these places. I will go. You will guide me. Where you will go, I will go. If I shouldn't go to the circuses, I should go to the Bet Midrash, to the Nordic Bet Midrash. I'll go to the Nordic Bet Midrash. And then Naomi says to her, my daughter, is not the way of Israel like to reside in a house where there is no mezuzah. So Ruth said, where you will lodge, I will lodge. This is in the text. In Ruth. Asher talini ani alin. I will live in a house, in a Jewish house. What is a Jewish house? It's a house where there is a mezuzah, where there is kosher food. That is the kind of house which I will live in. And then she says, your people is my people. My connection is not only a personal connection to you, but it's also a connection to the whole people. You can't be a Jew on an isolated island. Your people is my people, and I know that there are consequences for what I do. There are punishments and prohibition. And then finally, the last thing she says is that she also accepts that Elokai, Elokai, that your God is my God, and I will undertake also the rest of the mitzvot. But really coming to the God of Israel is really the last thing here. So it's very, very different from the order at Sinai, where the very first thing is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm the Lord your God, and everything else stems from that. It's the last thing, because this is really a way for somebody who comes from a natural way for the rest of the nations of the world who want to find a natural way to find God, and then goes the path which Ruth goes. So we see here that there are different ways to reach the peak of Sinai. There's the peak of Sinai, which you can reach, which we read in the Revelation, where we say Naaseh v'nishma, that we accept all the mitzvot, and this is the peak which is natural after we've heard the miracles and we've been through everything. Asher hotzeiticha, that this is God's visit card, that's not that God has created the world, but God has brought us out of Mitzrayim, and as a result of this, we have the spiritual redemption at Sinai, and here we have somebody who comes from it just from her heart of kindness, and that is also a way to come to the people of Israel and to the God of Israel. And I will finalize just with that. And thank you all for listening in. And I wish you Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, and hope that the news, which is coming in now the last hours, that please God, after 600 days of the worst of the worst, that we will have our hostages free, that our soldiers will be able to also have the end of war, and that there will be also for the other side hope, and that we will that we will see peace in the land, and hope for our children, that these news will this time turn out to materialize, and with God's help, that we will see only good for our people and for the people of the land. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose it's my turn. Thank you very much, Rabbi Michael. Thank you for this. And I think that I hope that my few words coming on now will be very much connected to what Rabbi Michael spoke about. What are these blue lines? Okay, doesn't matter. It's okay. Let's start. Shavuot, as Rabbi Michael said, Zman Matan Toratenu, the time for the giving of the Torah, and we are very happy, very, very happy that we have this Torah, and on this festival, that is what we celebrate, actually, that we got the Torah, and that is a great, great joy for us. I would like to see together with you, two kind of midrashim of Rabbi Simlai. That is his name. Rabbi Simlai, he apparently lived in the land of Israel, some 200 years after the Common Era. And we'll have a look of what he has to say. We'll ask some questions and we will try to answer. Okay? Okay. Rabbi Simlai expounded. He made a drasha. He explained something. The Torah begins with, I read from the text in front of you. The Torah begins with loving kindness and ends with loving kindness. That is what in Hebrew is called chesed. Chesed. And I try to use that word from now on, but loving kindness. It begins with chesed and it ends with chesed. It begins with loving kindness, as it is written, and God made for Adam and his wife coats of skin, and he dressed them. That is, we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he made chesed with Adam and Eve, and he gave them clothes. To dress someone is for sure a way of making chesed with other people. It ends with loving kindness, that is with chesed, as it is written, and he buried him in a valley, that is, Hashem buried Moshe. So Hashem he is for us what human beings do to other human beings, that is to give a dress to the one who needs a dress, and as Rabbi Michael spoke about also, as a big chesed to be in the Chevra Kaddish and to help out burying others. So the Torah starts with chesed and it ends with chesed. Now, I would like to ask, what is the topic of the Torah? What is the theme of the Torah? If we listen to these words of Rabbi Simlai, he seems to say that the whole of the Torah is chesed. If you say something begins and ends with X, whatever it might be, then the whole of it is X. That's the way people speak. It begins with this, it ends with, that is the theme of the Torah. But on the other hand, when we say when we say someone keeps Torah and mitzvot, okay? So we feel that the Torah is mitzvot. Torah is a framework. In the Torah, we have defined deeds that we should do or that we should not do, and these are the mitzvot. But chesed seems to be something else. So how can you say that the Torah begins with chesed and it ends with chesed? It is chesed, but shouldn't you say that the Torah is mitzvot? Now, this very same Rabbi Simlai has a saying that speaks another language. Okay, and that is the next one. Rabbi Simlai expounding, 613 mitzvot were told to Moshe, 365 prohibitions in accordance with the days of the sun, and 248 positive commandments in accordance with the limbs of a person. So we have mitzvot, we have a number of mitzvot, we have mitzvot that are things that are prohibited, we have mitzvot that are things that we should do. That is another language. I keep mitzvot. Chesed, there might be mitzvot that could be explained as being chesed, but chesed seems to be something else. Now, how should we explain that? How can you solve this sort of two ways of describing the Torah? The Torah by the same rabbi, the Torah as full with chesed, and the Torah as a framework of the so important mitzvot. Perhaps, my friends, we can solve it by going further into Rabbi Simlai's saying, and I mean now the second one. I hope I brought it. If not, can you scroll down, roll down, continue on? Oh, here. Okay. Okay. Now, I'll tell you something with my words, and then we will look into this last sentence we have. Interestingly enough, this Rabbi Simlai, it is apparently him, he who continues, I think it is. He says, well, there are 630 mitzvot, and so many positive mitzvot and negative mitzvot, but they can be shortened. They can be reduced into fewer ones. Then he starts to say that David, King of David in Tehillim, he said that there were so and so many. Yeshayahu said there were so and so many, and he says fewer and fewer numbers. He started off with 613, and then he says this one said it was 11, and this one said it was 6, and this prophet said it was 3. And then he comes to the last one, and that is the prophet Habakkuk, that we know from the what we call the small prophets, the 12 prophets. And now I read in the text that is in front of us, rather Habakkuk came and established these on one. As it is said, the righteous shall live by his faith. Now, what is this? How can you reduce the mitzvot? If they are so important as they are, how can you all of a sudden reduce them? How can they be fewer? Now, this could be explained, I think, in different ways, and I will go on one path together with you. Rabbi Moshe Isserles lived in Krakow in Poland in the 16th century, And he explains it in the following way. He has an argument with another interesting rabbi, more or less the same time, a bit beforehand, and that is the Abarbanel. Abarbanel wasn't from Poland. He was born in Spain, and then he was in Spain, in Portugal. He was a great rabbi, a great commentator of the Bible, but he was also a minister of Spain and Portugal afterwards, and he was an important man. But when in 1492, when the Jews were thrown out from Spain and Portugal afterwards, he also left with nothing, and he came to Italy, and then he stayed in Italy until he passed away. And now this Abarbanel, who wrote a commentary on the Tanakh, he also wrote other books, and he says on one place that you cannot make rules out of the mitzvot. The mitzvot are the mitzvot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 613. And it's wrong to sort of give some kind of rules, roots of the mitzvot. And then Rav Moshe Isserles, we travel back to Krakow in Poland. He says, no, I don't agree with you. You can make rules. And he says, we have Rabbi Akiva who says, you should love your neighbor as yourself. This is a great rule in the Torah, the Klal Gadol BaTorah. And then he brings Rabbi Simlai. He says, what does Rabbi Simlai do with the other quotations? Let's say the quotation that we had, that Habakkuk says, Tzadik be'emunato yichyeh, that the righteous one should live with his faith. Now, I would like, it could be that we should translate it in this way, be'emunato, with his faith. But you could also translate it in another way, and emunah is someone that you can rely on. Well, what should I say? Someone who is trustly, who is faithful. Now, you can and you should be trustly towards other persons, towards your neighbor. And you should also be trustly towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator, who created you and who keeps you and the whole world alive, existing. And being faithful is to be faithful to that, to other persons and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this faithfulness, being trustly towards this, that could be a great rule that covers much of the mitzvot. Now, I would like to return, if you allow me, to Rabbi Simlai's first saying. The Torah starts with chesed, it ends with chesed. That is another language, a language with which we accept. Sometimes we speak about the mitzvot as mitzvot. They are defined as such, and they are very defined. You should do this, exactly this, not that, and not that. And this is prohibited, this is not prohibited. And these are mitzvot. But sometimes we speak in other language. It's a language which we could call a language of values. There are people who think that we shouldn't speak such a language. We should remain with the mitzvot. The mitzvot shouldn't have anything with them, and anything added to them. And a great teacher, which I very often return to again and again, Rabbi Yehuda Amital, Alav Shalom, who passed away some, I don't remember, 20 years ago or something, perhaps a bit less. He said, that's a great mistake. Judaism is mitzvot, but not only. It is also values. To be kind, lovingness towards another person, it's a value. To be faithful and trustly isn't a defined mitzvah, it's a kind of a value. And we will live with mitzvot and values. Sometimes a value is an explanation of a mitzvah, is the rational idea of a mitzvah, sometimes not. I can be a man of chesed or a woman of chesed without saying, no, I'm performing a special mitzvah. I do a deed of chesed. And these values are completely a part of Judaism. So if we take the two sayings of Rabbi Simlai, so we have Torah as chesed, in the middle, let's say, Rabbi Simlai says Torah is 613 mitzvot. At the end he says, and there are values that can describe the mitzvot, that can have within them these rules, these values, have the mitzvot and explain them, or something like that. Now, my dear friends, why is it so important, speaking about values as well, speaking about chesed in the Torah? Let's return to the chesed that Rav Melchior spoke about with Naomi and Ruth and Orpah as well. They were people of chesed. The Torah describes chesed in Sefer Ruth. What's the importance of accepting values? I think that if you don't accept values as a part of Judaism, as a part of Torah, you want to say, I don't want a human explanation of the mitzvot, a human way of describing the will of the Torah. The Rambam, in a place in his great philosophical work, Moreh Nevuchim, the guide of the perplexed, he says in a place, there are people who wrongly say it's a higher way to say that mitzvot are not to be explained. They should be without explanation. And it's a lower way to give an explanation to mitzvot. It's no, says the Rambam. It's the other way around. As long as you can give an explanation to mitzvot, we should keep them. If we do understand, we don't understand. But given an explanation to mitzvah, it gives us light. We understand the mitzvah. It's a part of us as well. The same thing with values. Values are, I would say in Swedish, allmänmänskligt. It's everyone are part of values. Let's take Ruth that we heard in the first part of today. She comes with chesed, not from Judaism. She's a Moabite woman, but chesed is natural to her. She does chesed with her husband, with her mother-in-law, and so on and so on. That is Ruth, and perhaps that is the importance of it. These values are a part of the creation, are a part of humanity that God created. And such values are also part of Judaism. And therefore, again, if I would go to the conversion of Ruth, perhaps we could say, let's say in the laws of conversion, of Shiur, they say that what Ruth did, what she was a part of, that you take food from the field that the workers have left when they're at the harvest, and so on, and you should teach such things to a person who is on his way to be converted. Why? You could say because he or she should know that this is an important part of Judaism. Yes, but perhaps we could also say then you're able to build a bridge between what you are now. You are Ruth, a Moabite woman, and tomorrow you are Ruth, a Jewish woman. And the bridge is values that you already have, such as chesed. And then Rabbi Simlai says the values are here. The Torah starts with chesed, ends with chesed, and so on. And converting is then sort of not throwing yourself into something complete unknown or something completely, I don't know what. No. It's known to you. And what's known to you is also part of Judaism. Then we have more. We have mitzvot. We have to keep the mitzvot. There are even punishments if you don't keep the mitzvot. And there's a reward if you do keep the mitzvot. Yes, but the values are also a part of Judaism, such as chesed. And perhaps, I'm not sure, this is already speculation, and you don't have to accept, you don't have to accept anything I say, but perhaps we could say, my friends, that yes, the following, I almost forgot. We know that this Rabbi Simlai, he had discussions with the new Christians. We have a few places where this is said, and with others as well. He had a kind of, let's say, dialogue with them. He, of course, didn't want to of course, he wanted to be with Judaism, but perhaps at the thought I have, he comes to say, you want to speak about only perhaps values. And he says, I don't say no to values. I say yes to values, but it's values with the mitzvot, and all the details of the mitzvot, and all the halachot, and all the dinim of mitzvot, but the values are still here. You shouldn't take away the values. They are part of human beings and such, and it's also a part of Judaism. And perhaps that's kind of a message of his, but that is a speculation that you can say, no, it's not true, or whatever you want to. But anyhow, I would like to stop here and say that as you all know, Shavuot doesn't have any special mitzvah. Not really. We have all kinds of minhagim, important minhagim, traditions, but it doesn't have the shofar of Rosh Hashanah, the matzah of Pesach, or the lulav of Sukkot, and so on, because it's the Chag of the Torah as such. That is what we are celebrating. That is what we are happy with. And what I try to do tonight is only to add, not to forget, that the Torah also is a Torah of chesed, a Torah of values, and these values should be a part of us as well. Thank you very much for listening, all of you.
And not to forget the cheesecake.
Chag Sameach.
I don't know if it's a value, but anyhow.
It's a big value.
It's not so healthy.
Meir, I think Esther wants to say something.
Yes, please.
I have a question for both of you, rabbis. First, about Ruth, because Ruth was, I think, both of the girls were born with good midot. Is it so that when when we are about to come inside mother's womb, then the angel takes our soul up and asks Hashem, what is this person to become? So I'm thinking like the other sister didn't want to convert, but Hashem decided that Ruth is about to be born and become a Jew and grandmother of David. So, but I'm also interested why the other sister didn't want to convert, why she cried and left. It's dangerous for a woman in that days to go alone. The three of them could have been surviving well, but the other one is when, okay, that was, but my summary is about what if people are born with certain midot and then we have to make tikkun when we live. The other question is about the last sentence of this, that the righteous will live by his faith, that it summarizes everything together. Like it has the mitzvot, it has the hesed, and it has. So is it that they are all combined there? The values, hesed, and the righteous also. He's not righteous because he was born to be having hesed, but he had to work for it to become righteous. So mitzvot aren't they meant for us to, somehow make us better persons? So I don't know if there came already 3 or 4 questions, but you can explain. Thank you.
Okay. You want to start?
No, Meir, you
Okay.
covered.
Okay. Thank you very much for asking these questions. Your first question, if I caught it clearly, why didn't Orpah, how did it come that Orpah didn't convert? There are sources like something you mentioned, but we mainly think that man has a free will. Since man has a free will, we can't really answer that question. Orpah, she chose what she wanted to do, and I don't think that we can or should answer why she didn't convert and Ruth did convert, because we have a free will. That is the great, great rule. And I would say that sources saying something else should be understood so that we keep with this great rule of having a free will. So I don't think we can answer why Orpah didn't, because Hashem doesn't choose for us, we choose by ourselves. That is what I would like to say, if I did understand your question, number 1. Concerning the other one, what Tzaddik v'Emunato Yichyeh, that the righteous live with his faith, I think you are right, but you should perhaps pay attention to that. I try to say that emunah here isn't necessarily belief, theological belief in Hashem, which I'm not sure if you try to find out whether emunah in the Bible means such. There are places where you could say, but to believe in, I think, is a kind of a later way to say it. And I think that emunah here is to be trustfully, faithful towards yourself, towards other persons, and also towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then it's a kind of a value, but I think you're right that everything is within this value. What you try today to say could be said as well. You said perhaps that the faith, the belief in God, as such, perhaps includes all of it. But I don't think that's the main idea. But we shouldn't argue on that too much.
Dismiss it.
Please, Rabbi.
No, I think it's right, but I think that this is something which goes. If you want to comment on also on what Rabbi Mital Zatzal said, then he says it's beyond the mitzvot. It's beyond. It's not. It's the mitzvot, and then then to be faithful and to be trustworthy is beyond. It's another level beyond the mitzvot, which it's another layer, I would say. So as is also chesed, or loving kindness. It's another layer, like to be decent, to be honest, to be this. It's another layer, which is it's an integral part of the Torah. There is no Torah without that. The temple is destroyed if we keep the mitzvot, and we don't have that extra layer. The Talmud says that if we don't have that layer of decency, of loving kindness, of trustworthiness, then there is nothing. And therefore this goes together. I think you said it beautifully, Meir.
You should smile. You seem to be very sad, all of you.
Thank you very much for both of you. You are very beautiful neshamot and good people.
So are you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach to all of you.
Shabbat Shalom.
ותודה רבה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
חג שמח.